terms of the workaround, especially for the generics drug producers and manufacturers, is it necessary then for to search out alternative markets to hedge their bets more widely, and are they doing so?
Yes, that's right. So while the US currently represents the largest pharmaceutical export market for India, the risk of increased tariffs is likely to accelerate India's push to diversify its trade relationships when it comes to pharmaceutical exports. And South Africa is the next biggest market for Indian generic drug makers to export the generic medicines. And also we are seeing that in anticipation of the potential tariffs, a lot of the Indian pharmaceutical companies, they're already taking strategic action when it comes to expanding their US operations as well. So companies that have more than a certain percentage of their revenues coming from the US market are really the ones that will continue to set up facilities in the US as a means to prepare for any potential risks. And a notable example of this trend is Zydus Life Sciences, which recently acquired a biologics facilities in California.
Interesting dimension, especially with the shift towards South Africa. Sakshi, just turning domestically, and the reforms in the domestic pharmaceutical sector ostensibly aimed at streamlining the approval process. Ultimately, what does it mean for India's patients and India's consumers? Does it mean more affordable healthcare?
Right. So we see India's pharmaceutical landscape is undergoing significant transformation despite the tariff uncertainty, and the most recent being India's drug regulator reforming its guidelines on how expert panels review new drugs as well as medical devices for approval. So these reforms really aim to address the critical delays in India's current approval process by establishing clear protocols for the subject expert committees that really advise on product approvals. So according to the Organization of Pharmaceutical Producers of India, currently launching a new drug in India is severely delayed by up to 4 years. And this is in comparison to markets like the US and the EU. Now, with the positive reform on the streamlined approvals, it will reduce regulatory barriers and accelerate market access for both domestic as well as foreign pharmaceutical companies. Next, we also saw back in August of last year that the drug regulator again introduced a waiver of local clinical trials for drugs that have already been approved in major global markets. Again, these are markets such as the US and EU. So this decision again aims to speed up the availability of new medicines, and as a result, it is likely to draw more foreign pharmaceutical companies to India's market. And because of these positive initiatives, we at BMI forecast India's pharmaceutical market to grow at about 5.9% in local currency terms till the year 2029.
In terms of the verticals within healthcare and the treatment areas, what parts of the industry and what parts of the market does this benefit or impact the most, Sakshi? Is it going to be oncology? Is it going to be treatments related to aging, or could it be what seems to be a trend? Let's face it, across the world, and that is GLP and weight loss drugs.
Yeah, that's right. So with the streamlined approval process, it will not only benefit the domestic manufacturers that mainly look at generic medicines, but this will also benefit the international foreign drug makers that want to get their medicines launched in the market. But with that said, we still see that manufacturers will need to remain cognizant of challenges, which includes India's below average healthcare spending as a percentage of GDP, and the continued price controls on essential medicines that the National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority is implementing. And on top of this, drug makers are still navigating a complex regulatory environment in terms of the intellectual property protection. So while we are seeing that India has demonstrated a commitment when it comes to improving its intellectual property system in recent years, it still lacks concrete measures to meet international standards. And for this reason, we've seen over the last several years that the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America Trade Association has recommended placing India on the priority watch list. And this we saw happening in the 2025 special report as well. So this really reflects ongoing concerns from leading multinational drug makers.
How is this policy or these reforms actually going to narrow the divide, narrow the healthcare divide? Because from what I understand, there is cheaper treatment available at public hospitals, but most Indians choose the path of private healthcare, and this is really being driven by perceptions of quality. So does this or do these reforms help narrow the gap and help alleviate those perception issues?
That's right. So one of the aim of the streamlined approvals is also to look at the national essential medicine list and get more approval for the medicines, not just, again, generic manufacturers, but innovative medicines as well, which the population has more access towards. So we see that this list will definitely narrow the gap between the public as well as the private healthcare sector.